Hey, real talk. Is narcissism trending? Are you already so tired of that word? So over it? So bored? So not this again? Stay with me anyway, because this isn't about what you think it is. This is so much bigger than what you think it is. And it may be playing out in your home, in your work, in your religious systems, because it's playing out all the time. In the group you call your people, in your belief system, you're not immune to this. You are touching it in some way. So last episode, we talked about how a single thought becomes a belief if it's repeated over and over, and how a repeated belief becomes a paradigm. It becomes the entire perceptual field you walk around in without ever questioning it. I hope that tickled your brain. Narcissism is one of the most powerful, most dominant paradigms that has been handed down to us over and over, generation after generation, culture after culture, people after people, without any of us giving consent to it. And yes, it's in your family somewhere. None of us is immune to it. So let's actually look at it. Welcome back to Heaven on Earth, the podcast where psychotherapy meets spirituality, where inner journeys become outer abundance, and where together we explore the visible and invisible dimensions of being human. I'm your host, Claudia Cauterucci. So listen, I've sat with people, sons, daughters, cousins, partners, employees, higher class, middle class, lower class, all ethnicities, and in one way or another, they are describing the same disorienting, confusing, overwhelming experience. Whether they're loving someone, working for someone, or being raised by someone, or how about this? Going to school with someone. Some of this happens when we're children. The bully, yeah, that's narcissism. Who could seem nice, but in 1 second is mean, is cruel, is cold. Yeah, and that whole mean girl vibe, narcissism playing out. And maybe you are the one wondering, is it me? Is it my fault? Am I going crazy? That confusion actually has a clinical name. And lately, it feels like all of us are being asked to learn it, at least to name it. And you know my take on naming things. When we can name something, it's an actual meditation. So let me keep going. Why this word? Why in this decade? Why all of a sudden are we all fluent in a diagnosis that a lot of us didn't even know 10, 15 years ago? Because what I think is that the veil is lifting. I propose, I contend that we are becoming a more conscious, more awareness-based humanity, and one that is finally ready for a change that we have been prepping for quite a while. And what feels like chaos, because I know a lot of us are feeling it. Like, what the heck is going on? It feels chaotic out there. Is actually not the world falling apart. It is the tremors, literally, earthquakes, movements, floodings on the planet as a species who is stretching into its next stage of evolution. Straight up. And chaos precedes order. It always has. It goes like this: order, disorder, reorder. That's basically therapy. And we might be in this chaotic movement for a while. Consciousness or awareness always helps. When we know what's going on, it usually feels easier to endure. I've been talking about this on every single podcast. When we've got a map, when we've got instructions, when we've got a guide, when we've got folks that we travel with. Yeah, it helps, especially in times like these. So there's a second thread, and it's more literal. We are the most connected generation of humans that have ever lived. The internet, social media, every tool in our pockets that keeps us always in real time with someone way across the globe. We are so interconnected. I mean, I think we've always been through other ways, but in the literal sense, it's all through the internet, through these satellites. We see more now than any generation before us. And when we see more, we become more aware. And when I say see, I'm talking about it in two ways. We actually see something through our sight, through our sight sense, but I'm also talking about seeingness. We actually see what's going. And what we're seeing very often is not what we wanted to see. A lot of the times it's terrifying, it's horrifying. It ranges from realizing and seeing that our parents are actual normal human beings to seeing what humans can cruelly do to other humans. Yeah, right now we have way more visibility into predators. We have more visibility into abuse inside families, institutions, inside places that we were told were safe. We see more famine, more systemic violence. We see mass atrocities. We see exploitation of children like we've never seen before. It's always happened. We're seeing it. We're seeing secret systems behind the scenes, rituals that have harmed human beings for centuries, quietly in the dark, but it's not quiet anymore. The veil is lifting. And this is where it begins, not the horror of it, the seeing of it. Because when we see it, we are actually moved into action toward our own humanity. And again, this goes for everything. When we see ourselves, when we see others, we are moved into action. So this leads me to the yin and the yang. The seeing requires the yang. The receptive, feeling, empathic part of us, the yin, has always known, has always responded to something is wrong, but naming it, confronting, drawing the line, putting the spear into the ground, and calling it by its name, that takes the yang. It's active, it's discerning, it's decisive, and it's willing to look straight in the eye to what is hidden. And that goes for you, my love, when you're doing your own internal work, and for all of us as a collective human. So why all this talk about narcissism, and why do I talk about narcissism, and why did I co-author a book on narcissism and the injuries that it causes, but also the recovery from it? Why? Not because it's trendy and not because it's trending, because it's actually the shape of something that we are now willing to see, from our homes to our ancestry to our planet, and yes, to our future. So if we're going to name this pattern, let's actually name it. Let's talk about it as a societal architecture. Grandiosity, which is an inflated sense of self, and it's disguised as charisma, as someone who has a vision. In a person, it sounds like, listen, the rules don't apply to me. In a nation, it sounds like the rules are different for us. We feel exceptional, but in a way that demeans others and separates us from others. There's a complete collapse of empathy, and that's an inability or a refusal to feel someone else's suffering or someone else's pain or someone else's humanity. So in a person, this means that someone who's cruel might look away from their own cruelty. At scale, it looks like humans being reduced to statistics or called collateral. Everything is about the theater of it, how you look, how you're coming across. It's created for who is watching. Entitlement, which again is, these rules don't apply to me or to us because I am or we are the exception. It's feeling special, but again, in a way that demeans or feels superior to others. You or we are the only special ones. Exploitation, which is using others or other communities or other nations as the instruments of personal or collective gain. Yep, extraction is the name of the game. And yet behind all of that, there's quite a fragility, a very fragile ego, a very fragile sense of self-worth that is wearing a mask of dominance. And it needs to be there because there's such a fragile, unexamined core. And how about this one? An inability to take accountability. So mistakes are always someone else's fault. Demeaning others is because they deserve it. That entitled position requires domination. Things cannot be questioned. What's up with that? Accountability requires courage. And the intolerance of accountability is cowardice, masked, though, as great dominance. So go through that list twice, maybe for someone you might know, someone you might been with, and then again for maybe a system that you've seen, lived with, been inside of. It's worth knowing because you've been in proximity to it in one way or another. I know this is getting a little heavy. I know it's even getting heavy for me. And I'm not naming it to overwhelm you. And I'm not naming it to get heavy. I promise. I'm naming it because it's the answer to where we actually started. Why are we so obsessed, so sick, so exhausted by this word right now? It's because we're finally seeing the cost of it, the toll that it takes and has taken on us as individuals, as families, as a congregation, as a nation. So inside any home, this pattern has predictable strategies: domination, isolation, cutting the person off or a group of people off from anyone else that might reflect the pattern to them. Fear-mongering. This whole pattern runs on fear. Gaslighting, rewriting someone's reality or a group's reality until they no longer trust their own intuition or instincts or knowledge. Today we might call it fake news, and fake news in many ways, in the external, but also in the internal. We just don't believe ourselves anymore. We're always wondering what's real. Severe abuse, sometimes wearing the mask of love, of I'm doing this for your well-being. And yet in the background, there's a fragile ego that has no other way of existing other than dominating through fear. And who are usually the first targets? Children, women, animals, because it works. And that control impacts someone across all dimensions: emotional, physical, psychological, and it doesn't stay contained to one home. So the same architecture, the same pattern that plays out inside your living room is playing out at scale and harming the most vulnerable of us. And by the way, the strongest of us, because this happens to all of us. We are not immune, no matter how kick-ass and badass we are. Whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's child trafficking, whether it's the files over there, whether it's war over here, these are not separate conversations. It's the same strategy of control wearing a different scale. And we can't look away from any of it. We just can't, even if we want to. We are being asked to look at this human pattern right now, especially. This has existed for centuries, mostly in the dark and mostly in silence. What's different now is that we are a generation with enough visibility, enough collective consciousness to actually see it. And get this, I want you to listen to this if this is all you remember from this episode. Where there is sight, there is a choice. Once you see, you are presented with a choice. That goes from the very little things when you go shopping to the very big things like this conversation. This pattern is not new. It's in the most literal sense biblical. Every culture has a version of it. It's really about the self that forgets that it's part of something larger, that forgets that we're part of something that connects us and starts to believe that it is the center of it. It's this calling to go out into the wilderness to fight our own internal demons, to realize that we are connected to something much greater than just ourselves. And if we don't understand that connection, we will harm each other. Even the first murder in the Bible, the Cain and Abel story of the two brothers. And that was born out of comparison. It was actually based on the idea of a wounded ego that could not bear to be second or to see themselves as second. And so it required to murder his own brother. This shows up all the time. This pattern is on automatic, it's on repeat, and that is exactly why we must name it. Systemic violence, mass atrocity, entire populations that were reduced to less than human by systems that convinced others that some lives mattered less. And that is narcissism at a civilizational scale. It's the collapse of empathy into hierarchy. I really want you to reflect. How is this showing up inside of me, inside of the groups that I'm? Take a real look. We've seen it in institutions. We've trusted our children to places that harm them. And whether it's the individual or the collective, the story is the same. Things cannot be questioned. Are we in a home where we can't question things, where we can't question ourselves, where we can't question our own patterns, the patterns outside of us? So it's not only the difficult person in your life, it's the pattern underneath them. And it's sneaky for us. It's when we choose image over truth. Really take that in. When I'm making my decision, what am I choosing? Because it's all about a choice. So, oh my gosh, let me leave you with something other than dread, because dread isn't the point of this. I promise you, it's not the point of this. Survival of the fittest is only half of the story of our human evolution. And that is based on competition, on dominating others in order to survive, right? But get this, and I highlight this in the book, The Empath Leader. So did care. So did the mother who fed a child that wasn't hers. So did the person who carried the wounded rather than leaving them behind, right? We just had the Venezuela earthquake. Enormous. But double the enormity was the level of care that the whole globe rushed to assist. That's happening everywhere. Care is happening all over the planet. In mammals, in humans, care, courageous care is also what's keeping us alive. Remember the yin and the yang? Cooperation, care, courage, all survival strategies too. Are you the one who speaks up for that kid that's getting bullied? Are you the one who says, no more gossiping about this person? Are you the one? Because I care? Are you the one who stands up and offers the seat? Because see, care does not require us knowing each other. It doesn't. It requires us realizing, wait, we're connected. We're connected. Are you the one helping people escape atrocities? Are you the one naming this pattern? Just naming it. I think this is narcissism at play. Are you the one calling the front desk when you hear screaming in the room next door? Are you the one? So care has kept us here as a species as much as dominant competition. And both forces live inside of us. And the choice of which one leads is made daily, not just once. Whether it's in your household, in your friend group, in your relationship, what matters more to you? I mean, you'll talk to couples therapists all the time. Do you want to win the fight? Or do you actually want to listen to each other? Do you actually want to find a way out because you care? That's in your home. That's in a company. That's in a nation. Are you making your moves to dominate? Or are you making your moves because you care? And you care about yourself. This is what I call the plug and socket in my book, The Empath and the Narcissist Dynamic. This is it. And it's not just personal. The all is in the small and the small is in the all. It is a civilizational choice point, and it's one that takes the species forward. And I think that is the question right now in these chaotic times. It is the language of our human operating system, in particularly the emotional one, the emotional dimension. And it traces back to our volume 1, the stories we inherited, the paradigms we inherited. And in some families, we weren't allowed to question them, possibly families that were based on a narcissistic pattern. Maybe in our religious groups, we weren't allowed to question it, right? The lack matrix. We are not enough. Nothing is enough. You are not enough. That's an inherited belief. And yet we weren't questioning it. We were introjecting it. We were swallowing it whole. And it's actually the root system out of all narcissism. If there's not enough and I don't feel like I'm enough, you better believe that I am going to fight. I am going to squish others because I actually feel so fragile to get what happens in one household happens in miniature in one nation. What happens in one nation happens at scale across a species. The small is in the all is in the small. So listen, we are not diagnosing a villain. We are naming a pattern we are finally conscious enough to see. And seeing it is the beginning of choosing something else. You get it? Really reflect on this for your own life. If what we've named today is actually landing somewhere inside of you, you've got an urge to build something different, to lead differently, to love differently, you are not alone. A new way of being and a new way of leading is no longer optional. These times are calling for it. Calling for it. It's essential. I'll be sharing more about my 7-day empath leader retreat in Cartagena, Colombia. Yes. I'll be sharing about that in September, where we go even deeper into what conscious leadership is actually required of us now, whether you're leading your own family all the way to an organization. But for right now, just right now, the place we begin is actually working through our own human operating system together, resetting our nervous system so that we can actually receive the new world that's being born all around us. And both paths run on the same thread: emotional intelligence. So my 30-day reset, which is coming out in August, builds the foundation, and the empath leader builds what you do. Because we don't just need insight, right? We don't just need awareness. We need instructions, a map, a guide, and others to do it with. So take care of your inner world, because your inner world is always shaping your outer world. Until next time, empowering from the great Casey Kasem. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the skies. This is heaven on earth, a portal to possibility.